Let's bring in two reporters for the New York Times who've been reporting on these stories over the weekend. Peter Baker is the chief White House correspondent for the Times and an NBC News political analyst. He joins us from New Jersey, near the president's home. And Michael Schmidt is a Washington correspondent for the New York Times and an MSNBC national security contributor. So, Peter, you were writing up the vice president's response to the story over the weekend. The Times reporting that he's positioning himself for 2020. They're vehemently pushing back on this.
Well, they are. Look, the vice president isn't doing anything that doesn't make sense politically. He's not going to run against President Trump. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about what if the president doesn't run for re-election? Who would come next? I'd like to be that person. That's, in effect, the message that they're sending. But it obviously looks bad, and it looks bad particularly to an audience of one. That would be the guy at the top who thinks he is going to run again in 2020. And any sign that anybody else might think otherwise is seen as something of a betrayal. That's why you see the vice president pushing back so hard, not because he cares too much about what the New York Times thinks or any of the rest of us think, but because he wants the president to think he's on board.
Peter, he's tweeting again. He was tweeting this morning. His advisors want him to be silent in the morning. He's not doing that. And he's still tweeting this afternoon. He's going after the New York Times. What's going on over there?
Yeah, he's obviously, it's raining, there's no golf. He's obviously been pretty active today on Twitter. Two favorite targets, the New York Times and Senator Richard Blumenthal. He went after Senator Blumenthal again this afternoon, saying he should go on a long vacation to Vietnam so at least he can say he was actually there, chiding him for his misleading statements he's made in the past about his service during Vietnam. So, he's doing the same thing he does on vacation that he does in work, which is to watch television, to get mad about something and to express it in a very visceral way.
So he's mad and he's tweeting, but the reality is this Mueller investigation, the stories surrounding this White House are just not going away. And Michael, you had a story over the weekend about how Bob Mueller is asking the White House for documents pertaining to Michael Flynn. So how far out are we from formal subpoenas?
Well, this is sort of the first stage of the Mueller investigation's interactions with the White House. This is sort of saying, look, I'd be interested in these documents. Let's talk about how I can get them. Both sides would probably want to avoid a subpoena, especially the White House. The White House wouldn't like the idea of being subpoenaed by Mueller. My guess is at some point they probably will have to be, but it's something that lawyers on both sides try and work out. Mueller says, look, I'm interested in this thing, and the White House says, oh, we can accommodate that or we can't accommodate that. And it's the beginning process here. We're in like the second inning of Mueller's investigation, so this is a thing. The next phase would be interviews and stuff like that, where they really start to talk to people and gather as many facts as they can about these different avenues that they are looking at.
Are people in the White House getting nervous? Just maybe the rank and file, not necessarily any of those at the top?
I'm not sure. My guess is that they are pretty used to, and my sense from talking to them is that they're pretty used to this. This is the drumbeat of Russia has basically started before they even came to the White House. So this is not new to them. Obviously, Mueller is more serious than not having Mueller before Comey was fired. But this is something they've been looking at for a long time. And I guess that's what makes some of it interesting is that they haven't been able to figure out a way to deal with it because it's been going on now for 200 days while they've been there, and they can't seem to put the issue to rest.
And has Mueller asked for documents relating to anybody else in the White House that you know of so far, Michael? Anything maybe further on Jared Kushner?
No, all we know is stuff focused on Flynn. And, remember, Flynn is not just Flynn's interactions with the Russian ambassador and what that meant to his time as national security advisor and whether he lied to the FBI. Those are all one issue. But the other issue is whether Flynn was working for the Turkish government illegally and whether he had registered properly to do work for them and was doing that work during the campaign and when he was national security advisor. So as Mueller sort of moves forward here, we start to realize how complex and how many different things he is looking at, stuff that includes financial stuff that includes obstruction of justice, and stuff that includes the Russian meddling. So there's a lot on his plate. And
so there's this. There's also staff positions in the White House that haven't been filled. There's no communications director after Scaramucci was ousted. There's a lot of talk, Peter, about Stephen Miller potentially filling that role. He was the president's speechwriter during the campaign. We saw him take the podium in the briefing the other day to talk about immigration and this new proposal that the White House is backing in Congress. Is he somebody who is actually in the running, or is this just a name that's getting floated out there, Peter?
Well, it does seem to be a real possibility, but there is a part of me that wonders whether it's just not a way of punking the media, given the sort of very vigorous way he defended the immigration proposal the other day in a very heated exchange with reporters. The idea that very next day or two that he would be floated as a communications director, it sort of seems like a jab by the president at some point. No question, he would like to have somebody out there who is a robust and aggressive proponent of his policies, who's willing to give the media what he believes they deserve. That's how you get on President Trump's good side as a communicator. And this is, Stephen Miller's background on the Hill was as a communications advisor. So, it wouldn't be entirely surprising, but he'd be a very big contrast to, say, Anthony Scaramucci's first briefing when he got up there very smooth and saying, I want to reset.
Yeah.
That was before his sort of scatological interview with the New Yorker. And, I think Stephen Miller would not be a reset if he were to be briefing very often, because he would be taking a more pugnacious point of view that the president likes.
Scatological, that's a nice way of putting it, Peter. Yeah, and Stephen Miller would certainly be a reversal back to the anti-press times in the White House and during the campaign. Peter Baker and Michael Schmidt, guys, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.